The week started off with a character dying in a way nobody ever expected, including the character. Natalia did it to herself while appearing not to have any idea what she was doing. That is how accidental overdoses happen, but since this is Port Charles, nobody believes what happened to Natalia was an accident. We weren't even sure what was really happening as Natalia drank herself into a stupor while alternately popping some sort of prescription medication, which we later learned were tranquilizers. By the next episode, a character who nobody ever really liked was dead, just when she was starting to get interesting. Why didn't we learn about Natalia, and who she was inside before GH ruined her by making her a blatant homophobe as soon as Eva LaRue made her debut? By the time Natalia made her alphabet soup remark to describe the LGBTQ+ community, she was persona non grata with fans and never recovered. No amount of shoving her with Sunny did the trick, so GH finally threw up its hands and decided to write off Natalia in a dramatic way. Now Sidwell and Marco are sure Sunny had something to do with the overdose. Both are going to want revenge, and neither one has any idea that Sunny did not want Natalia dead. In fact, he wanted to give her a life of luxury and save her from prison. He just didn't want to be with her, which was enough to drive Natalia to drink and pop pills at the same time. That is what killed her. But this accidental misunderstanding is going to reverberate through town for months to come as Sidwell and Sunny's mob war heats up. And speaking of heat, in the same way that Sunny never meant to harm Natalia, Sidwell never meant to harm Christina. Thankfully for Alexis and Molly, she wasn't harmed badly and will be up to her old tricks next week. But Alexis and Sunny certainly believe that whoever set that fire absolutely meant to kill Christina. The fact that Christina wasn't supposed to be there works in Sidwell's favor. She went into work to open Charlie's because someone had called off sick. We are not sure what Sidwell was really up to, but he was furious when he learned his goons set a fire with Christina inside. The bar was supposed to be empty. Was Sidwell firing a warning shot? Or was he trying to rid the town of Selena Wu so he'd have less mob competition? He framed Selena, so she was forced to leave town. We assume she will find a way to return one day because Selena is always up to something and fun to have around, so we can't see her taking this slight lying down. But we must talk a bit about Christina and fire. As Soap Central noted earlier in the week, Christina had the perfect opportunity to just walk out Charlie's back door as soon as she saw the first flame. Marco didn't need to accidentally see the fire and rescue her, hence not making it to his mother's hotel room before she died. But no, Christina had to try to use the world's smallest fire extinguisher, which only seemed to make things worse. 'Cause that's our Christina. Tracy was not happy to get Sunny's news from Brooklyn Image, ABC. Nope, Tracy wasn't buying it. And neither are we unless Sunny needs to retire more than we thought. Sunny accidentally invested dirty money in deception? Isn't our Sunny a little more clever than that? Isn't that how he's managed to sneak under the radar all these decades and not end up behind bars for life? Sunny knows how to cook the books, how to invest, and where to put his money. We find it hard to believe that Sunny would have purposely tried to sabotage deception and hurt Brooklyn. So what really happened? And how did Sunny's ill-gotten gains end up in Deception's bank account? Was Natalia more duplicitous than we imagined? Brooklyn's not-so-accidental accident. So what was Brooklyn really trying to do? Image ABC. So what was Brooklyn really trying to do? Image ABC. So hold up. Brooklyn left those files with Rocco's origin story out by accident when she meant to leave them out by accident. Brooklyn told Maxie that she wanted to hurt Lulu. So she planned to accidentally leave the files with the Brit Westbourne tail out on the table. Then she changed her mind because she knew they would hurt Rocco. However, she did end up leaving them out, and Rocco did accidentally find them. Last week, while GH has been delivering on the soapy goodness for well over a month, it really did drop the ball here. What soap has a kid find out he was born via a stolen embryo, and then not follow up on it till a week later? We didn't even see Rocco find the file. Danny found it and told Rocco it had his name on it. The next thing we know, Rocco and Danny were sitting in a cafe lamenting about the find while waiting to question Emma, who was about 5 years old when Britt stole the embryo and tried to pass Rocco off as Emma's little brother. Now, Rocco's supposedly accidental find is going to just perpetuate the Brooklyn-Lulu feud and likely alienate Gio from Brooklyn even more. Good going, Brooklyn. And Lulu. Both women need to go to their corners, grow up and stop this petty nonsense. Even Maxie, who has not always been the picture of maturity and played a large part in the Rocco embryo debacle, is over it. You know what? Portia and Curtis deserve each other. Each one is selfish and manipulative, lies when it's convenient, and has absolutely zero self-awareness. No wonder Portia just couldn't help herself and cheated on Taggart all those years ago, resulting in Trina. She'd found the perfect match. Jordan, just run, girl, run. You don't need this disaster and headache in your life. No, you did not accidentally walk in on Curtis and Portia getting ready to do the horizontal tango on his office desk. Portia made sure you saw that moment in brilliant technicolor. That is why you don't need these people in your life, Jordan. Just hide somewhere until they are done torturing you and move on to their next toxic misadventure. The accidental WSB agent. Jocelyn never really aspired to be a WSB agent, but when the opportunity presented itself, she thought about it for 5 minutes before she was all in. And now JH has retconned a reason why. No, we do not believe for a second that bringing down Sunny was Jocelyn's or GH's original intention when they decided to send Avenger Barbie to spy school. But that's the story they're sticking with, so here we go. And really? Jocelyn shot Cyrus Renault and was offered the opportunity to do something different, and her mind immediately thought, hey, I bet my 22-year-old self can rise in the rankings at an international spy agency in record time so I can finally nail my evil stepfather whose bodyguards and money are always convenient when I need them? There was no way that was going through her head. If it was, then Carly's daughter is more delusional than we thought. Jocelyn never saw herself holding a badge, let alone one stamped by the World Security Bureau. For most of her life, she was caught up in the chaotic warmth of the Corinthos family orbit, never fully in it, but never completely out either. Her identity was forged by the contradictions of Port Charles, the duality of her mother's fierce maternal love and reckless romantic entanglements, the illusion of safety under Sunny's protection, and the constant danger that seemed to follow him like a shadow. So no, becoming a WSB agent was not on Jocelyn's bucket list. Yet somehow here she was, on the inside of one of the most secretive global intelligence agencies, chasing down criminal masterminds while wearing boots she probably bought for a night out at the Metro Court. The official line was that she shot Cyrus Renault in self-defense, and in the aftermath, someone somewhere in the agency saw potential. But was it really potential they saw? Or an opportunity to exploit her position as someone close to Sunny Corinthos? The showrunners want you to believe that Jocelyn had a sudden epiphany, that the only way to carve out a life separate from Sunny's world was to destroy it. It's a neat narrative arc. Almost too neat. Because realistically, Jocelyn was never that calculating. If she had a master plan, it usually involved figuring out where Dex had gone, dodging her mother's disapproval, or trying to make sense of a life that rarely offered any. There's a growing disconnect between the Jocelyn of the past, the headstrong, emotionally impulsive girl who loved fiercely and lashed out easily, and this new version of her. The one who's suddenly cool under pressure, strategic in her thinking, and capable of navigating an organization that recruits the best operatives from across the globe. She's no longer the girl who clutched a camcorder and blogged about her life. Now she's supposedly someone who's been vetted, trained, and elevated through the ranks of a global agency. The transformation feels rushed even by soap standards. But let's walk through the narrative as they're presenting it. According to the New GH Gospel, Jocelyn's shooting of Cyrus marked a turning point. That moment, triggered more by adrenaline and fear than premeditated intent, somehow sparked a chain of events that led her down a path of espionage and subterfuge. Never mind that there was very little in her academic or emotional history to suggest she could stomach the violence or duplicity that comes with the spy game. Never mind that her loyalty to her mother and even to Sunny has, at various points, been too emotional, too entangled to allow for objective thinking. We're expected to believe that this single event stripped away all of that, replacing it with cold, clear resolve. What's stranger still is how the show justifies her shift in allegiance. Because if the WSB was truly looking to bring down Sunny Corinthos, why recruit someone with such obvious ties to him? Someone who, on more than one occasion, has benefited from Sunny's power and money? There's a strange logic at play, one that seems to rely on the idea that proximity equals effectiveness. But it ignores human complexity, especially the kind embedded in the Corinthos family dynamic. Jocelyn has loved Sunny, hated him, needed him, and resented him. Her feelings are a tapestry of contradictions, Not the ideal foundation for dispassionate espionage. It's almost laughable when you think of it. The WSB recruiting Jocelyn is like asking Lulu Spencer to join a cult, just to bring it down from the inside. It's not that these women aren't strong or capable. It's that their emotional ties run deep. That depth makes them compelling characters, but unlikely candidates for clinical spy work. And yet, here we are watching Jocelyn learn how to decode encrypted messages, seduce information out of dangerous men, and pretend like she hasn't spent the last year dodging emotional landmines in the form of Dex, Trina, and her mother. There's something almost tragic about the way her character has been twisted to fit this new arc. We're being asked to believe that she's doing all this to finally take down Sunny, when in reality that has never been her primary motivation. If anything, she's spent most of her adult life trying to create space away from Sunny's empire, not destroy it. She wanted freedom, not vengeance. So if the writers are now retconning her entire motivation to revolve around toppling the Corinthos crime syndicate, they're erasing a key part of what made Jocelyn Jocelyn. And yet, maybe that's the point. Maybe the goal was always to chip away at who she used to be and create a new version, one more hardened, less naive. A version of her who could look at Dex in the eye and lie without flinching, who could accept that her mother's choices will always be a mess, and who could step into a world where morals are gray and survival trumps sentiment. But if that was the plan, it should have been paced more thoughtfully. A slower unraveling, a deeper emotional arc, a more nuanced depiction of what it means to give up your former self in service of something bigger. Instead, what we got was a time jump in character development. 1 minute she's fuming over a missed text from Dex, the next she's cracking code in a WSB safehouse. This sudden evolution also leaves other relationships in a strange place. Trina, her best friend, doesn't quite know what to make of this new Jocelyn. There are gaps in their conversations, awkward silences where there used to be easy laughter. Carly tries to support her, but the confusion in her eyes is hard to miss. Even Michael, who once played the role of moral compass in the family, seems uncertain about how far Joss is willing to go. And that's the kicker, because if no one in her life recognizes her anymore, maybe that says more about how far she's strayed from who she really is than it does about her new mission. And what of Sunny, the man at the center of it all? He hasn't exactly been Father of the Year, but he's also been a consistent presence in Jocelyn's life, a protector when she needed one, a shield when her world collapsed. To imagine that she would now dedicate her life to tearing him down feels less like organic character growth, and more like an editorial decision aimed at shocking the audience. Of course, drama thrives on betrayal, but there's a fine line between plot twists and character assassination, and GH seems to be tiptoeing over it. Perhaps the most telling sign of this shift is how Jocelyn now reacts in high-pressure situations. Gone is the emotionally reactive young woman who once stormed into Sunny's kitchen demanding answers. In her place is someone who sizes up a room before she speaks, who weighs every word, who guards her vulnerability like it's a state secret. That kind of transformation doesn't come from a single event. It comes from years of emotional conditioning, trauma, and recovery. But instead of showing that process, the show has opted for shortcuts. A few training montages, a cryptic conversation with a WSB handler, and suddenly Jocelyn is a world-class agent. It's exhausting trying to reconcile who she is now with who she was. And it's made all the more frustrating by the sense that we're not supposed to ask these questions. We're supposed to accept the retcon, roll with the espionage, and root for Jocelyn as she wages war against Sunny. But some of us remember her sneaking into Carly's bed at night as a child, terrified of losing her family. We remember her clinging to Jax's moral compass, even as she was pulled into Sunny's gravitational field. That history matters even if the writers want us to forget. And what about the week without Drew? As much as we might have enjoyed the break from his overconfident monologues and vaguely self-righteous demeanor, it's clear he's on his way back, and probably with more narrative gymnastics in tow. Maybe he'll be the one to guide Jocelyn through the WSB labyrinth, offering sage advice while conveniently forgetting his own shady past. Or maybe he'll become the scapegoat when Jocelyn's cover is blown, forced to take the fall for a mission that was doomed from the start. One thing's certain. This storyline isn't going anywhere quietly. The writers are invested, the plot is in motion, and Jocelyn's evolution, or devolution depending on your perspective, is at the center of it all. There's potential here, no doubt. Watching a character like Jocelyn navigate the moral complexity of espionage, while dealing with the ghosts of her past could be rich storytelling. But only if it's handled with care. Only if her choices are given emotional weight, and her relationships allowed the space to fracture, evolve, or heal. Because Jocelyn Jacks isn't just Avenger Barbie. She's a girl who lost her stepfather to a bullet, who watched her mother fall apart and pick herself up again, who buried friends and held grudges and loved with everything she had. She's layered, complicated, and deeply human. And no amount of spy gear should erase that. So if this really is the path GH has chosen for her, they'd better make it count. They owe it to the character and to the audience that grew up with her. Otherwise, she risks becoming just another plot device in a show full of them. And that would be the greatest loss of all. General Hospital recap for Thursday, July 3rd, reveals that Wiley Corinthos ran to Willow Tate, Emma Scorpio Drake slammed, the Britch aka Britt Westbourne and Jason Morgan smelled a setup. At the cafe, Emma showed up to see Rocco Falconeri and Danny Morgan. Rocco had Britt questions after seeing the file Brooklyn Quartermain had. Emma went on a rant about the Britch, and mentioned Britt getting herself pregnant. It dawned on Emma that Rocco was the baby involved, so she ultimately pushed him to get more answers from his parents. At the Quartermain mansion, Maxie Jones got updates from Brooklyn on Sonny Corinthos' inadvertently dirty investment. Maxie also got the news about Natalia Ramirez's grim fate, and debated with Brooklyn over what to do about the Sonny situation. When Maxie picked up a nearby file, it turned out to be the one containing Brooklyn's Brit research. Brooklyn confessed that she was plotting payback on Lulu Spencer, but she couldn't go through with it because she didn't want to hurt Rocco. At the Metro Court pool, Willow interacted with Giovanni Gio Palmieri briefly before turning her attention to Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson. Willow sang Kai's praises since he came to Drew Kane's rescue with a fake phone call at that disastrous press conference. Once Trina was alone with Kai, she voiced more concerns about Drew, and felt that Kai needed to stay away from all the Quartermains since they were crazy. Tracy Quartermain showed up to speak with Gio, who gave her a cold response. Nevertheless, Tracy brought up the fire that Christina Corinthos Davis has sustained minor injuries in and warned Gio that he could be in danger too. Emma eventually joined the discussion since Gio was just going to fill her in later anyway. Tracy wanted Gio to move back on the Quartermain property, but he refused and felt like this was really about turning him against Sonny. When Michael Corinthos brought Wiley for his swimming lesson, he caught a glimpse of Willow and privately urged her to leave. Willow stuck around anyway, so Wiley saw her and ran over to hug his mommy. After Willow blamed the judge for their time apart, Michael let Wiley know they needed to leave now. Wiley was upset over being separated from his mom, and complained about the judge to Michael, who embraced him. In the PCPD interrogation room, ADA Justine Turner urged Sonny Corinthos to talk about what really happened since nothing would be admissible without his lawyer present. General Hospital spoilers for Monday, July 7th, state that Rocco Falconeri will lose it with Lulu Spencer about the Britt Westbourne surrogacy she concealed from him. Carly Spencer will also give Giovanni Gio Palmieri the hard truth, so let's talk about it. GH will air a replay on Friday, July 4th, but viewers won't have to wait long for the action to resume in Port Charles. The program will return with an all-new episode on Monday, July 7th, beginning with Rocco's released rage. At home, Rocco simply approached Lulu and pressed her to tell him about Britt. Now that Rocco has seen Brooklyn Quartermain's research, he expects Lulu to provide solutions. "You did not give birth to me." "She did what?" Rocco angrily asks Lulu in Monday's GH preview video. Lulu will reveal the intricate narrative of the stolen embryo, and how she did not realize Ben Westbourne was her son until later. Although Lulu will not think this changes anything, Rocco will be furious at being kept in the dark about all the Brit news. Brooklyn will talk to Cody Bell about ending her quarrel with Lulu. Brooklyn will say that one of them had to be the larger person, and she may explain that she simply wants to move on. Of course, Brooklyn will be unaware that Rocco has already ripped into Lulu after discovering the file she had on him. Lulu will undoubtedly be furious when she learns that Brooklyn is the reason Rocco discovered the truth about Britt. Next, Jocelyn Jacks will inform Vaughn that this isn't working, and declare that they are finished. Jocelyn appears to be planning a public breakup, but she may get closer to Vaughn behind closed doors. Carly might see Jocelyn's declaration and question her daughter about it later on. Monday's episode will also see Carly's talk with Gio and her admission about the complexities of having Sunny in her life. Carly will admit that she would be lying if she stated there was no other side, presumably to Sunny. Although Sunny is kind and fiercely protective of his family, Carly may recognize that there are certain harsh realities that come with being a mob boss. Sunny's loved ones can occasionally be damaged as a result of their connection to him. Thus Carly may agree Tracy Quartermain's concerns are not unfounded. Anna Devane plans to question Jen Sidwell. Sidwell, on the other hand, will stonewall Anna, arguing that if she wants answers, she should turn to Sunny. Finally, Sunny will inform Laura Collins that there may be a way to limit the damage caused by the escalating mob feud, but she may have reservations about his method. According to General Hospital spoilers, Sunny and Sidwell's feud is far from done, so stay tuned for more twists and turns. Rocco had always been the quiet one, the rock in the storm, the youngster who had matured into a young man of discipline, brilliance, and grace. But all that elegance was broken when he confronted Lulu. The rage he'd held up for years, the silent contempt, the unresolved questions, it all burst. He discovered her at the Metro Court restaurant, seated near the window, sipping tea and smiling as if the world hadn't fallen apart around them. Rocco did not wait. He walked up to her, his eyes burning. His voice shook with pent-up wrath rather than fear. "You left," he murmured coldly, the word lingering in the air like a blade. "You walked out and expected everything to stay the same." Lulu looked up shocked. "Rocco." "No," he snapped. "You can't say my name like that. As if nothing happened. As if you hadn't missed half my existence." She stood carefully, attempting to maintain her composure. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Rocco said. "You decided to leave. You decided to stay away. And now you show up as if we're expected to continue where we left off? You don't even know me." Lulu's eyes were filled with tears. "I wanted to return sooner. I wanted to be there for you. But you weren't," he exclaimed, causing everybody to turn their heads. "You were gone. Dante had to cover for you. He never said anything terrible about you, but I could see it in his face. Every birthday, every school event. When I asked about you, he would simply shift the conversation. You abandoned us." Lulu reached for him, but he retreated. "I know I hurt you," she muttered. "No," Rocco replied coldly. "You did not hurt me. You made sure I felt nothing at all. I stopped asking about you years ago. And now you're here anticipating what? Forgiveness? A hug? You don't understand that." Lulu's heart broke right there. She knew this would happen, but it still crushed her. It was unbearable to watch her son, her baby, in such anguish and anger. But Rocco did not wait for an apology. He turned and went away, shoulders tense and jaw taut. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Carly was dealing with her own personal storm. She paced around the Quartermain living room, waiting for Gio. When he walked in, she got to the chase. "You need to hear this," she insisted, holding strong. "And you're not going to like it." Gio sighed. "What now?" "I've watched you," Carly said, her tone stern. "You're brilliant and capable, but you're heading down a path that will ruin you. You're overly attached to folks who won't cross the street to aid you." Gio folded his arms. "If this is about Sunny." "It's not just about Sunny," Carly said. "It is about you. You're attempting to be someone you are not. You want to prove yourself, and I understand. But you are pursuing shadows. You're playing in a world that devours people alive. I can handle it." Carly stepped closer, her eyes burning. "No, you cannot. Not yet. You're getting in over your head and someone will be hurt. It's probably you. Or worse, someone you care about." Gio turned away, his jaw tightened. "You believe I am a kid. You do not respect me." Sunny had brushed off the concerns earlier, saying maybe the tip was just bogus. But Jason didn't believe in coincidences. He kept thinking about a man he'd seen lingering around the docks, one he couldn't quite place. Something about the guy had felt off. By the time night fell, Jason was already deep into surveillance mode. He reran the security footage from the pier, slowed it down, enhanced it. That's when he caught a brief glimpse of the mystery man talking to someone off camera and passing a phone. Jason didn't recognize the man, but the phone was a burner, a fact that made the situation even more suspicious. Whoever had passed that phone off wanted to avoid detection. And that told Jason one thing: someone was planning something big. He immediately thought of Drew. Their relationship had soured badly in recent weeks, and Jason couldn't shake the feeling that Drew was involved, or at least aware. The tension between them had worsened since Jason had refused a truce. Drew had proposed an alliance, but Jason could see the cracks behind his cousin's facade. There was something dangerous beneath the surface, something Drew wasn't admitting. And now, with this odd activity near Sunny's territory, Jason couldn't help but feel that Drew might be making a power play. Back at the Corinthos compound, Carly was piecing things together in her own way. She had heard bits and pieces from Willow about Wiley's discomfort, and she saw the fear in her daughter-in-law's eyes. Carly's instincts told her there was more to the story. She confronted Nina the next morning at Crimson. "What's going on with Wiley?" Carly asked without preamble. Nina raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. Willow told me Wiley doesn't want to go to your place anymore. Said your new friend makes him uncomfortable." Nina looked taken aback for a split second, then recovered. "That's absurd. He's a child. Sometimes they say things." Carly crossed her arms. "Wiley is more perceptive than you give him credit for. And I trust Willow's instincts." Nina narrowed her eyes. "So what, now I can't have friends? You can have whoever you want. But if your new associate is upsetting my grandson, then we've got a problem." Nina bit back her response, choosing instead to walk away. But the tension between her and Carly had reignited like a lit match to dry tinder. Back in the Quartermain mansion, Brooke Lynn heard about Emma's confrontation with Britt and couldn't help but grin. She had her own history with the Britch, and was more than happy to see someone call her out. But her mood soured quickly when she received a text from Chase about a weird discrepancy in one of the department's investigation files. A name had been altered, a signature forged, and the case connected to the same dock activity Jason had been tracking. Brooke Lynn and Chase went over the file together that evening. They pieced together the details, realizing someone within the city's infrastructure was covering up something involving the pier. "This isn't just a smuggling op," Chase murmured. "There's laundering here. Money, maybe even weapons." Brooke Lynn tapped her pen against the table. "And Drew's name came up during that dummy transaction. It wasn't directly tied, but it's there, just faint enough to be deniable." They shared a look. Something was unraveling fast, and all signs were starting to point in one direction. Later that night, Jason sat outside the warehouse watching. The same burner phone man reappeared. This time he wasn't alone. Drew arrived 10 minutes later, looking over his shoulder. Jason pulled out his phone, recorded the interaction. They didn't see him, but he saw them. And just as Drew turned to leave, Jason caught sight of someone else lurking in the background. Someone unexpected. Valentine. That made the hair on the back of Jason's neck stand up. Across town, Wiley was curled up beside Willow in bed. He had finally relaxed enough to sleep, safe in the warmth of her arms. But Willow stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning. She knew that protecting Wiley wasn't going to be simple. There were too many layers. Too many people with motives. Emma was meeting with Robert Scorpio the next day to discuss Britt's recent behavior. She planned to formally request a review of Britt's activities at the hospital. Jason compiled his footage and sent it in encrypted form to Brick. He wanted a second opinion. He needed someone who could dig deeper. Brooke Lynn made a late-night call to Diane. They needed legal eyes on that dock shipment. And Carly was already drafting a formal custody complaint. The storm was coming. No one could stop it now. But as Jason watched the footage one more time and paused on the frame of Valentine watching Drew, he realized this wasn't about just one betrayal. It was a setup. And it wasn't just Drew who might be playing both sides. Jason's jaw tightened as he leaned back in his chair. If someone was laying a trap, they were about to find out that he didn't walk into ambushes. He destroyed them. Tomorrow would bring answers. But tonight, the city was holding its breath.